There's a lot of signals to me that are very concerning. And so I want to be very careful about, whether or not we can get down to 12 or 13. I think we still can. 9.
In today's video, Chief Market Strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com Gareth Soloway tells us all about his latest analysis of the charts as well as his predictions and price targets for Bitcoin and Ethereum. He believes that we could possibly see Bitcoin's low in the coming months. Soloway shares his opinion regarding high inflation rates, the stock market, the crypto market, and the Fed.
We've been talking about gold for a long time, and I remember when we spoke at the end of last year, you said that 2050, 2070 level was where there was resistance. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about gold's path forward in 2023 and just how we could see that unfold.
Yeah, so the way charts dictate, right, is that we have a very clear resistance from the high of 2020 here to the high of 2022 here. All right, so we know that there were investors that were kind of up there buying and up here buying, and each time we pulled back. So what that's going to do is it's going to trigger when we get back to that level. There's going to be some investors that say, hey, listen, every time it's gotten here, it's pulled back, so I'm going to sell into that. And what that does is it ultimately causes a pullback at that level. It's called a triple top in this case. So off of this, the way triple tops usually work, you get a small pullback of those sellers, but the overall macro bullish pattern here, this is when, see, if we look at this bigger pattern, it's all sideways. Yes, it kind of came down, then up, then down, then up, but overall, it's a sideways channel. That's a bullish channel. That tells you the macro, the bigger move is going to be a big breakout to the upside. So again, in 2023, I do think we touch the highs here, the triple top. You'll probably get a little bit of a pullback, a few sellers that say, I'll take my profits and run here. But then I expect by end of year to break above this level. So in terms of buyers, what I've been saying is to buy the pullbacks, right? So you never pay up when something's gone on a run for 10 days in a row or something. Never pay up because you'll inevitably get a pullback. The question is, where do you buy? And basically for that, what we can see is if you take the high from 2022 to this high, there's this downsloping trend line, and then you have this upsloping trend line as well. And what we're seeing is that those two are getting closer and closer to the same level. So for me, that creates a confluence of two major support lines. And if we were to get a pullback on gold here to basically 1925 to 1900, that would be a really good technical support to buy for that next leg up that possibly could see a breakout through the 2075 level.
So is $30 for silver a possibility in 2023?
I do think it is a possibility. I mean, it's definitely the high end of my target. And again, we can see that gold is much closer to that double, triple top than silver is at this point. Part of that reasoning is also if we are going into a recession, then the industrial side of silver suffers while the store of safety still helps it. So it has something working against it during a potential recessionary situation. Having said that, I still think that by year end, if gold's going to make a move towards 2,300, it makes sense that you could probably double top on silver between $29 and $30. I do think silver eventually breaks out. I think most of commodities, because inflation is going to stay high for a longer period of time, most commodities do very well. But I think at least for this year, my high-end target would be that double, triple top.
I know that you focused really closely on what's going on with the charts and the data, but could you give some insight on what exactly is driving the Bitcoin price right now?
Yeah, so it's so interesting on the Bitcoin price because number one, when it was at 15,700, 20,000 even, we were oversold. There's no doubt about it. We were just coming off of FTX's collapse, lots of fear, all of that stuff. Anytime you get a maximum fear, you're going to get a reflex buy and kind of pop. It's just the nature of the cycle of markets. What ended up happening is after we were up here, we started to fall back down, and then the banking crisis happened, and I think there was a lot of money that went right in from the regionals into Bitcoin, right? I mean, and again, I've said this before, but if there's one reason for Bitcoin to be Bitcoin and be what it is, that crisis in the banking markets showed it, right? I mean, that's exactly what Bitcoin is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an alternative to the fiat currency system and the banks and all that stuff. So that really propelled new money in. And then as of now, we've seen generally a risk-on environment in stocks, in cryptocurrencies, which has kept it kind of grinding higher. So I think that was kind of a little bit of a situation where it was very, very good for the crypto markets in Bitcoin. Now, again, the big question is, can it get through here? If the stock market starts to decline precipitously, does that pull it back down? I do think it's still a risk asset, even though it's still showing signs every once in a while of being a store of safety. So as of now, as long as we stay below this 30,500 level, I'm going to remain slightly bearish, thinking we still are not through the bear market. But again, if we get above there, then it could be a game changer.
I want to check in just on the downside for Bitcoin in 2023. I think you mentioned 12,000 just now as we've been talking as a possible low point. When we talked at the end of last year, you thought that perhaps it could even get down to 9,000. Is that still a possibility, or is that out of the cards at this point?
So that is still a possibility. Again, the bigger question is on the levels. When do we break, right? So the way as a trader I work is that each level is a level until it's broken. So let's just say we pull back here. We could very clearly see that there was a lot of support here where it kind of consolidated, and that level's around 26,700. We then have a level at 25, and then this beautiful upsloping trend line around 22. As we break those levels, like if we break 22 here, you then have this pivot low at around 19 and change, essentially 20, and then the double bottom at 15.7. So for me, it's going to be a more of a stage. I still think that's possible. I find it very hard to believe that somehow the crypto market has bottomed with so much bullishness in it. You never really got the panic and fear. Even with FTX, you didn't get people saying, I'm throwing out crypto, it's done. You know, for the most part, it was buy the dip. And that's a very concerning mentality. If you look at all the bottoms in markets in history, that doesn't happen. Also, you have so many cryptos that are still out there that have very minimal use case, if any, and they're still alive and well, versus in the dot-com era, you basically saw a washout of those dot-coms that had no use case. So there's a lot of signals to me that are very concerning, and so I want to be very careful about, whether or not we can get down to 12 or 13. I think we still can. 9, if we break 12 to 13, then we're headed right for 9. So it's been a trader's market. I think that when you had the Fed intervention with all the money printing, it basically made the markets just go sideways to up for long periods of time. I remember the VIX getting down sub 10 over the last 5 or so years when the printing was going on, when quantitative easing was going on. And that was very detrimental to people like me who are swing traders, who like the quick moves, the volatility. Now we're back in a volatile market, and that is just gravy for us that want to get in and want to get out. And I can make so much more money than a long-term investor by trading the levels back and forth. And just like you said, it's a matter of I'm a trader that's always reanalyzing, right? Every day I'm doing a risk-reward assessment. I'm doing a probability assessment. Are we going to bounce here? Are we going to break here? How's that going to play? And then that dictates my daily trades on a consistent basis. So I think that the market was kept neutralized, almost like being a drugged patient, where the Fed was injecting this money, and it was just keeping the markets kind of in zombie mode, grinding higher. You now have a patient that's getting off the drugs, right? The Fed stopped printing the money, and now it becomes a much more real-life situation where there's volatility, there's craziness. And as long as the Fed isn't coming back and printing money, you're going to get this more volatile market, which means traders and investors need to be more nimble. You can't just be an investor that, to me, goes to sleep and says, hey, I'll check back in 3 years, and I hope I did well. That was the old way. The new way is to be more of an active trader. It is still what I'm thinking. So gold's performed amazingly well. I think it's beating the S&P right now, not obviously Bitcoin this year, but I do think that Bitcoin could run into some serious issues before year end. So I'm going to stick with the safe, steady gold trade here. And again, part of it is being risk adverse in a market where we don't know the outcomes of banking crisis and different things like that. And I think that's the play right now, is to be safer and be kind of in the sure bet versus going for the kind of the home run, which could be Bitcoin maybe continuing up, but Bitcoin could also drop 20, 30, 40% in a very short amount of time. Just keep in mind that this is a market where, the good traders and investors will stand out. Bear markets notoriously show you who basically can trade and who can't. In a bull market, everyone looks like a genius. What I always say to people is take 5 minutes a day and try to learn one thing about the charts, learn one thing about human psychology, and in a year you will be a totally different investor with so much more insight, making such much better decisions. So again, just a little education on a daily basis makes a big difference.